This week is leading up to St. Patrick's Day, but it's also Navy Week for us here in Savannah, one of only 15 cities across the country that get that designation with the visit from sailors from the United States Navy. And today we are joined by 4 people from the Navy who are also meteorologists here in Savannah. And for this weekend, it's really to bring out the awareness of what the Navy does. They're all around the country keeping us safe all the time, but there are a lot of jobs that we don't hear about all the time, and the weather department is one of them on the ships. We are joined today by Lieutenant Rigney, originally from Warner Robins, who graduated from Savannah State University with a degree in marine sciences. And then we have aerographer Mate Chief Petty Officer Megan Morehouse from Parkersburg, West Virginia. And also we have 2 other, Brian.
Yeah, we have Corinne Roberts from Melbourne, Florida, 5 years as an aerographer's mate. Aerographer's mate petty officer in the 2nd class, I believe.
Yep.
Yes. And then we have Avery Jackson from Atlanta. This is you've been serving for 3 years as a aerographer's mate, and you are our aerographer's mate petty officer in the 2nd class.
Yeah, so we have some experienced members here and also some newer members of the Navy. So I want to start off with you, Lieutenant. Yeah. What does it take to become a weather officer in the United States Navy, and how long does it take, and what are the scope of your responsibilities on a daily basis?
So I started out at Savannah State Navy ROTC on scholarship. So I guess working up to that, you really want to get there and do all the STEM courses. So a lot into the science, math, and all of that, and really have an interest. I had an interest in the ocean. So that's where I went with marine science there. So while I was doing my marine science degree, I was also ROTC. I was there 4.5 years. And then upon graduation, I was able to commission as an ensign in the Navy. I first commissioned as a surface warfare officer with an ocean option. Which meant that after my first tour on a ship, I was going to go and do meteorology and oceanography. So that first tour really gives you the experience and lets you learn about the Navy as a whole, how the Navy operates. And I can say it was an extremely valuable experience. So that's a 2-year tour. Mm-hmm. You get your first qualification, and then you go off to down to Gulfport, Mississippi, to where we send our officers to get trained on meteorology and oceanography. And it's a quick 6-week crash course on meteorology and a little bit of oceanography.
That's intense. For myself and Brian going to college for it's a full 4 years, but you guys are really focusing on what it needs for you or what you need to learn to do the daily job.
Yes. So that's the big thing. Really, we learn about the basics of the atmosphere, how everything's moving. And really, what we rely on for our subject matter experts are our forecasters, so the enlisted. Officers are there to really lead the charge and know enough to get us in trouble, to say.
Can you kind of talk about the responsibilities, specifically when it comes to like high seas or like aviation forecasting, things of that nature?
So for naval oceanography, we have a saying, it starts with us, because there isn't a ship, aircraft, or any operation in really the military that happens without us giving a forecast for it. And to the commander of the mission and letting them know if they can actually do it or not, we really have a huge impact into every operation and can make those recommendations to keep our ships safe, our personnel safe, and complete the mission.
What about some of the difficulties involving forecasting? I know for Scott and I, there's always uncertainties when it comes to forecasting. But like, what about for you guys out in the field? How much data do you have to rely on to do the work that you do?
So we do have some data. We have our own modeling capability in the Navy. So we do get that out on the ships. When we go down, we do have shipboard capability as far as having Doppler-like radar while we're out underway. So we do have that, and we also utilize satellites quite frequently.
Yeah, I'm sure being out so far in the ocean, that's probably super handy tool to have.
And you mentioned that the enlisted members are your observers, your eyes and ears. So opening up this to you two, how is it being out in the field, getting that type of information with very little other information to rely on?
I think that for our A schools, they treat us pretty well. That's our introductory school into the Navy. It is 3 months long, and it is specifically for learning the basics and the science behind how to forecast, how to go out there and observe. And then we have our forecasters or our observers do that for 3 years. That's their initial tour in the Navy, is just observing weather patterns and how that works. And then they go to a 9-month school where they get to apply everything that they learned and they saw to the book knowledge of how to forecast. And I think that that really helps out the Navy in the sense that it's that hands-on applicability before getting to have to apply it and have all the responsibility of a forecast on the back of your shoulders.
Yeah, that's really big. And history can change based upon the forecast, as we've seen.
Yes.
Almost 80 years ago. Of course, the D-Day invasion landing on Normandy all was dependent upon the forecast. None of us were around then, but what was some of the biggest things that you guys have been involved in with that, as far as like a mission that was critically dependent upon the forecast?
I'll pass it to Chief because I know she's deployed out with really all over the world, and I know she has a great experience.
So I think like I said, I absolutely love being an AG because weather in itself is not classified information. It's not something that like you can't Google. Anybody can Google the weather, but how we are able to take that weather knowledge and the information, and then understand that what Google tells us is not correct, because because we wouldn't have jobs if that were the case, right? Job security. Whoop. And then to be able to apply that to every single mission that we have out there in the Navy, and understanding the limitations to our ships, to our aircraft, to our personnel, and being able to make a forecast and give them the heads up of what they're going to do. So there's been multiple occasions where there's been missions that we've been able to interject in the FAR term with either climatology or with a forecast a few days out, where we can say, hey, that's not a great time of year, or that's not a great location to place assets, or that mission's not going to be able to go that day with everything that you want to do to be successful. And I've ran into that a few times with in Iraq and Syria, mostly. With my experience was being able to say, hear the planners in the background saying, hey, we need to execute this mission for whatever target tomorrow, and I can be like, hey, based on the weather, either you need to move that up a few hours, or you guys need to move that completely another 2 days, or whatever the case may be, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, so a big part of the planning.
Yes.
Yeah, so definitely can have a big outcome on the outcome of the missions. Now, as far as observers, how much have you been involved in tropical weather?
I did 8 months over in the Eastern Med. Actually, I just got back off of the USS Gerald R. Ford not too long ago. I think about 2 months ago. Now at this point, we got back in January. I was involved in tropical weather almost every day while I was there, but it was just mostly weather observing and planning around, planning our events around what the weather was doing.
Sure.
I guess a good question to kind of open it up to everyone, kind of describe the general work environment kind of on the base or out at sea.
I would definitely say being out to sea is vastly different from being out to land, because it's every day is a work day when you're out to sea. You have downtime, but it's very limited, and you have to share your space with everybody. There are challenges of being out to sea versus being on land, but there's camaraderie. You have a bunch of people with you. On my ship, it was 5,000 people with me. So I definitely did have comrades with me that were there to lift me up when I felt down. And there's a sense of pride and family when you're out there out to sea. It does get difficult at times, but I would say for the most part, our work environment, it was by far one of the easiest tasks that I've had so far, being in the Navy.
Yeah. Now when you guys were signing up for the Navy, did all of you know that this was the field that you were going to end up in?
No, I definitely didn't. So I signed up I was 17 years old. I like to say that my parents signed a permission slip for a field trip, and this has been a really long field trip. So went to boot camp, turned 18 in boot camp, and when I asked my recruiter what an AG was, he said, I don't know. And I was like, all right, let's do it anyway. And thank goodness, because it could have gone really bad. And it didn't, and I ended up falling in love with the job. And as meteorologists or as AGs, we have it really, really good in the Navy. So it's quite awesome that I got this field.
Yeah, from my end, so my dad's retired Air Force. That's how I ended up in Warner Robins. I always wanted to do military and serve the country. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be a meteorology and oceanography officer. I actually wanted to fly helicopters at first. And then when I changed my degree to marine science, I had a change of heart and I started researching. And I was like, oh, Navy has meteorologists and oceanographers? Had no clue. And to this day, it's gotten a little better, but when you go and search, there's just one website page. You're like, oh, what do they do? So I took the chance. I put in for it when I did my career selection while I was in ROTC, and thankfully was picked and have loved it since. Been in about 7 years now. So
That's impressive. That's really impressive. So some of you have the ROTC background and everything. So if anyone out there is interested in a career in Navy, what's the best way that they can get some information?
I think your local recruiter is always going to be the best person to get information. But if you're curious about it, Facebook, Instagram, U.S. Navy just posts all the time really cool information. And the great thing about the U.S. Navy Instagram is that they'll post the different jobs and exactly what they're doing. So then you don't have to be like me, who had no idea what an AG was, go to boot camp and not even know. But you can go onto either the Instagram or Facebook and just search and kind of find the job, because there's so many jobs out there within the Navy, and it's awesome.
Yeah, lots of things that you wouldn't ever think about, I
Right.
guess. And I guess that's one of the main purposes for Navy Week, for you guys to be out here and help educate what you guys do and some of the other jobs that are available out there, not only, I guess, in the Navy, but I guess can translate to other branches of the military. So thank you for coming. You guys picked a great week to be in Savannah. The best week in Savannah is the week leading up to St. Patrick's Day. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service and everything that you do to help to keep our country safe and the freedoms that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.